Rainbow running on notice. Got a bisexual girl that's do a professional girl that's treat me like a man, oh yeah, that's apologetic, that's it. She got no face for me, that's it. I'm pulling her every time.
We out here unionizing Amazon. Y'all know what we doing every day. Boom. What's up, everybody? Just out here unionizing Amazon. Come on, sign up, brother. We need you. Sign on up. We got 700 people signed up already. Welcome, everybody, to It's a Smalls World. This is our book club edition. We are back, and we're talking about Malcolm X again. So last time we left off, we were at chapter 4, which I believe was Homeboy. We kind of touched a little bit on Laura. And I would like to just jump right back into it. So we're going to be covering this week chapters 4 through 8, which is, let me bring this up. Harlemite, Detroit Red, Hustler, and Trapped. So I would like to jump into Laura a little bit and then transition into Harlem, because obviously, just like Malcolm X felt when he first went to Harlem, I always had that feeling. Even when I used to play hooky, it's so funny. I used to play hooky to go to Harlem. In like middle school, me and my best friend, we was just, living in New Jersey. We can see New York City literally from our houses. It's like we live in, came from Bergen County, and Bergen County is like literally the first county you'll cross into when you cross the George Washington Bridge. So you can see New York City all the time from no matter where you at within my city that I grew up in, Hackensack. And I just always had an infatuation with just going to Harlem, because Harlem was known when we were kids and teenagers. We're just known as a city that has so much swag, has so much history when it came to the entertainment world, when it came to the musicians, and obviously their style was just always different from any other borough in New York. So I always wanted to go there and experience that for myself. Obviously learning about the Apollo. I used to watch that show when I was little. Obviously the talent that came from the Apollo Theater is unmatched. So me going to Harlem for the first time I had the same feeling Malcolm X did. When he first touched down to Harlem, I don't think he ever wanted to turn back. And he ended up, obviously moving there and adapting to the culture. And one place he was not only worked at, but he was in daily so often, was called Small's Paradise. And this particular bar, it had several different characters, from pimps to servicemen to crooked cops to gangsters, prostitutes. And this really sort of made Malcolm a different person, way different than where he came from in Lansing, even more different when he came from Boston. You thought Boston made him who he was. I think it was really New York. And Sophia, his girlfriend, or at the time, the girl he was dating, she always called it out. Going back to the chapter of Laura, she was saying, no, New York is the city where you want to go. And he knew that in his heart. Once he got to New York, there was no turning back. And the reason why I want to bring up Harlem and Harlemite, that chapter, is because once again, I reading that chapter, he developed his lingo. He extended his lingo, his slang. He started becoming more of a, honestly, he was a bad person at the time. Yeah, at that time, he was running the streets. He was cursing a lot. He was getting in trouble at work. He was smoking weed. He was drinking. At one point in time in that chapter, he went back home to visit his brothers and sisters. Miss Swirling. Did I get that correct? Miss Swirling, I believe. Yes. The family that took him in, and they they were looking at him like, what happened? Like, wow, what happened? And to him, he thought he was he was like bringing back some new light to the city or to the town where he came from. He even put word for word, he rocked it. He rocked Lansing, and then he left the city. Like, he came, he mic dropped, signed some autographs. He said he was signing as what was it? Sandwich Red? He was signing as his alias name, Red, and he was signing autographs, and he felt like a little local celebrity. And he was fully swagged out, and that's what anybody that goes to Harlem, you always bring back something from Harlem, or you learn something new. You pick up something from Harlem. I know when I went there for the first time, Harlem was the first place, and I'm putting this on record. This is a funny story. Harlem was the first place I did buy something um, from, like somebody who actually was boosting. It was a stolen item back then. It was a MP3. MP3s were really like the thing at the wave at the time. This was before iPads and before the new technology. But back then
People
it
are
was
gonna be like, "What's an
MP3.
MP3?"
I know, right? What the hell is an MP3? And yeah, this is when we were stealing music off the internet. Like, remember LimeWire and Napster? So like this was during that time. And I went to Harlem, and I think he's probably a crackhead or something. And he was outside the store. I was on 125th. He was outside the store, and he came up to me. He was like, "I got this MP3," and I'm like, "How much?" I'm a teenager. I only have $20 to my name, and I knew that. But he tried to obviously beat me over the head and say, "I give it to you for 50." And I'm like, "I only got 20." And it took them less than 30 seconds to think about it. It's like, you know what? Yeah. So that was the first place I bought something, boosted. I know he stole it. I know it was a stolen item, but I don't care. I took it back home, and I was a man in high school with an MP3 from Harlem. And I took a lot of things from Harlem. I took uh, they used to in middle school, they used to have like nameplate belts, and I was the first one to bring that to my middle school, and I know I got that from Harlem too. And then going to the Apollo, the list goes on and on. Food, the food is great in Harlem. Soul food. The atmosphere, is still there. It's still there till this day. I could tell you that from just a series interrupted me. Sorry. Just from doing the rally a couple weeks ago in Harlem, I felt so energetic. I felt revived. I felt like I was home, and it wasn't a home that I grew up in. It just felt like just the culture, the people, the environment, the history. Being on Malcolm X Boulevard and Lenox Ave, protesting in front of Whole Foods. It just felt powerful, and that's what Harlem gives you. It just gives you that feeling, and I think Malcolm felt that when he visited for the first time. What you think,
It
Blake?
Well, it just struck me when you were talking about the food because I was getting so hungry when he was talking about all the food there.
Yeah, the
I
soul food.
love Southern soul food. Oh my
Absolutely,
gosh. Oh my
absolutely.
gosh. Like, it's so good. First of all, where are these restaurants? Okay. I never saw that. I know he talked about how some of them went out of business. Some of them,
Yeah,
like, later went out of business. But I'm like, where are these restaurants? Okay. I want to know. There's, because I love Southern soul food. And it's really, really hard to find. You don't really find it around here. So, anyway, but I guess like by the time I went to Harlem, it was already like gentrified because I've been to Harlem a few times, but what I saw was just like a lot of retail stores, Whole
hmm,
Foods. I guess like I just saw like the white people parts that have been taken over. So it was interesting to read what it was like when he was living there.
right,
What it used to be like before
right.
like like before it was gentrified.
Right.
That was I was like, man, I can't imagine what. And it was crazy to think about how young he was. He was like 17, like living there. Cuz like
Right.
I forget that like I just feel like people are more immature now. Like I feel like a lot of people when they're 17 or like, 30 will still be like not like on their feet. And a lot of that's not their fault because of our like system, but I feel like just some people their attitudes are immature. And like he just seems so mature for somebody that was only 17. It was like when I was reminded of his age, I was like, geez, he was just like a teenager and he was living there, like doing all that stuff, like so young. He wasn't even 21.
Right. He
It's
lied. He lied
crazy.
to get the job. Remember, he lied to get hired as a railman, working
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
kitchen. He had to lie
It
in his
was
application.
crazy. I had to
Right.
like Google his picture though. I had to Google a few things. First of all, I had to Google what zoot suit meant. I didn't know what
I was
that
going to bring
was.
that up. I was going to
I was
bring
like,
that up.
what is that? What is that? And then like I was like also I didn't know what that meant. But also like it made me feel sad like at like a lot of parts like how he was like describing the like the self-hatred that like certain black people feel about their hair and the way they look and like the things that they put themselves through in order to like look white. And I was just like, I just can't imagine like the way he was describing like the pain that they would go through to try to straighten their hair. I was just like, oh my gosh, that just sounds so awful. And then when he was talking about like how like he ended up feeling like he just like hated and resented. But I also thought it was interesting when he was talking about the difference between the black people that I forget what he called them, but when he was describing the girl that was sitting behind the desk when he went to go have his psych evaluation when he was trying to get out of the draft, and he was talking about it actually made me think of a lot of shit that happens today. He was talking about the first and how like a lot of times like white institutions will use like black people as props as a way to like make them think that like they can have like a little small crumb of something to make them think like, oh, we're all getting something too, when like really they're not all getting something. It's just like a crumb that they throw at like one black person to make like it seem like there's actually progress when like there's not. But like it made me think of I don't remember exactly how I worded it. I should have written it down, but it was very like disturbing because it made me think of how like white run institutions continue to do that today, but they just do it in a different way. Like corporations do that, politicians do that. Like it's like, oh, it reminded me of how like you've got politicians like Cedric Richmond, who is in one of the most powerful positions now in the country. He's like Biden's aide. He's really close to Biden. He's in the White House. And yet, he was the congressman representing a district that is 90% black, where the people are so poor and they had such toxic chemical levels of chemical and pollution in their district that they called it Cancer Alley, and that they just wanted to move a plan in there that these people did not want, but they were basically given the choice. You either get some jobs, some kind of like crappy jobs and take the cancer, or no jobs. And I was like, but it was like, Cedric Richmond, where the fuck are you? He's like, he's like, but it was like, oh no, he gets to be I'm the, black guy who really cares about equity and I'm going to go work in the White House now. Meanwhile, he represented a district that was full of black people that he didn't give a fuck about, that are poor and struggling and basically just thrown under the bus to like basically have a cancer plant put in their district. It's just like, so I don't know. That made me think of that because I'm like, they're still doing that. They're still doing that. They're still doing that.
It's amazing to see, yeah, like you mentioned, even on the last episode, you mentioned how, these things, a lot of pictures that we see online when we talk about Malcolm X and even Martin Luther King, you know how they always in black and white, and then you get that perception as if it was these things happened years or centuries ago. It's not that long ago, and these systems, just in different ways, they still exist. And just talking about Harlem again, how it is gentrified. Yeah, even as recent, just 10 years ago. You're right. There is no more really good soulful areas over there, soulful restaurants. I noticed that for sure when I went over there a few weeks ago. I'm sorry. Um, all the new retailer stores and the ones that are not there, the ones that are there now, Whole Foods and yeah, just whitewashed businesses that are there now and not the original culture that's there. Um, that's the most disheartening thing that I can say about Harlem right now. But it's still the people that makes it what it is, and I still felt that energy, that same vibe when I went out there. So long as that exists and we keep history alive, Harlem will always be what it is. It really would be what I say. I say it's the heart of the city. I think Harlem's is one of them places where if you go to New York, you gotta visit Harlem. You can't leave without going there. Um, I want to
Yeah,
transition
and
into. Oh, go ahead.
oh, oh, and I was gonna say I also because what you said about the black and white photos, I didn't realize that his hair was actually red. Because I've only seen black
Right,
and white photos of. I didn't. I've
right.
only seen black and white pictures of him. So I
Right.
never knew what color his hair was. So I was googling him. I don't remember what picture, and I saw a color photo of him, and his hair was actually red. And I was like, oh, his hair was actually red. I was like,
Right.
oh, that's why they called him red because his hair was red.
His hair was
Also,
red.
he gave some very interesting advice, like relationship advice, and he kept, he talked a lot about like sex and relationships and interracial relationships and the dynamic between that, and like how like and a lot about that. But one of the things that he said that I thought was really funny, and I know that like you could never say something like that today. I mean, he was probably considered a misogynist even back then, but you could never say something like this today. He would be raked over the coals as a misogynist. But it was actually really funny to me because I think it's kind of true. Was when he said that there were many dudes that would like go to the prostitutes in the morning because their wives were really mean to them, and how like he would see that like they felt so emasculated that they would just like go to like see the prostitutes. And I was like, listen, I know that that would probably sound really offensive to a lot of women, and I'm not making excuses for being a cheater. Like I think cheating's really fucked up. But at the same time, there is something to be said about understanding how to treat men. And like you actually could be a lot happier if you're like a cis hetero woman in a cis relationship. If you actually just kind of listened to his advice and understood that like men kind of just want to be treated like kings, and if you do that and you cook for them, they'll be really happy. Free
Right.
advice, you don't have to take it. You can ignore me.
Well, Malcolm said it. He said it first. He said it first. Um,
Yeah.
Actually, talking about the prostitute going into the next chapter.
Yeah, you're right.
What's
Don't
her
get mad
name?
at me. He said it.
Right. What's her name? Alabama. I think Peach, Alabama.
Oh,
That
yeah,
one.
yeah,
That
yeah,
story.
yeah.
That story. It was just the fact that she was just so open to sharing her story. He said after two drinks, she mentioned how she tried to force the Negro who was working for her family to have sex with her because she wanted to be with a black man, and he just ended up quitting. But it wasn't until she went to school and she experienced it and then never turned back. But just to know that she threatened to claim that he raped her if he wouldn't. How many? I'm just thinking about like the Central Park Five and other black men like Emmett Till. Um, how many cases where a situation like that happened that a black man is put in a situation where a white woman just claimed he raped her and he was innocent and was
Yeah,
brutally
it's funny.
killed or hung or anything like that. And she was obviously down with the culture, but at the same time, it's just bringing me back to that mindset of how things were back then. It wasn't
No,
it
it's
wasn't
funny.
always good.
Yeah, it's no, it's funny that you said it because I thought the same thing. Like she was trying to portray it as like, oh no, this isn't a big deal because I like black guys. But like,
Right.
the story's actually really horrible because she was trying to put that guy in a position to where he could have been killed. Like,
Basically.
and that was so. And what the story really told was just how common it was. That she knew that she could do that and that she would be believed because it was just so common for people to be like, oh no, of course I'll just say
Right.
that a black guy tried to rape me.
Right.
And I'll
you
be
can
believed
imagine-
and he'll get killed. So I don't care.
Right. Can you imagine how many of these stories probably happen and we don't even know about? Because that's the mindset she had, and who could imagine? Even Malcolm growing up in the country, even the country women were like that. They were infatuated and fascinated by the thought that being with a black man and like looked at it as a sex symbol or something that they just maybe out of curiosity, maybe it's a combination of things, but still, just that the culture back then was just I couldn't imagine. I'm still even just reading it. I'm like, wow, how many of these situations happen where the man was actually killed falsely, for just somebody trying to experience that.
Mm-hmm.
So that just thought me about, I want to make this a dark thing, but yeah, that.
No, but it is. It's really horrifying. And it's like
Yeah.
in those ways, like, it's hard for us to wrap our minds around because in those ways, there's a lot of ways that we can say like the country has not progressed and there's still a lot of systemic racism. But in that way, the country has made a lot of progress to the point where I cannot imagine it being illegal for like an interracial couple to get married or to be together. Like, it's so normal to me for like, if you want to go and be with a black person, if you're white, like, go ahead. Like, it's so normal. It was always normal to me. So just the idea of trying to put yourself in the mindset of knowing that that used to be normal, the norm, that you could just get killed if you were black for being near a white woman is just insane to me. Like, it's crazy to think about that kind of stuff used to happen on a regular basis. On a regular basis. They could just be like, oh, just kill him. No trial, nothing. Just kill him.
And it was even worse if you were, in the country. Forget about it. You're being hung. You leave your house. You never come home to your family. You just be missing. Find your body. If they find your body, beaten. I don't know, beyond, recognition. So, whew, that just, I had to bring that up. But let's go further into the book. Let me get back to my notes.
Oh, you were smart for taking notes. I should have taken notes.
I mean, I kind of benchmarked a little thing, little things that caught my attention. Where was I? Can't find it at this moment. But lately I want to know from these last 4 chapters, for the audience, is there anything that besides we spoke about these systems and anything that particular that you would tell or did you learn from, let's just say from the last chapter that we left off in, which will be trapped. Like anything that you can pinpoint to the audience right now that you felt resonated more than anything else.
I mean, I thought that was the chapter where he starts talking about his religious conversion.
Yes.
Yeah. And I thought that it was really fascinating. However, I didn't totally resonate with it because I can't imagine just kind of First of all, the fact that he got sentenced to like 10 years in prison for like a robbery was like so obviously racist, and like they wouldn't have done that to like a white person. But
Right.
then when he was in jail, um, the fact that he was able to just like quit smoking and just like stop eating pork, I was like, excuse me, can you tell me how to do that? Because I could not do that. I would have a fucking breakdown. So like, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? Show me your way, because I want to learn how to be that disciplined. And then like, just like about like, you know, what he was like learning, like, actually no, I shouldn't say none of it resonated with me. I guess what resonated with me a little bit was like him really gleaming on to the religion as a way to try to make sense of his life. Because in a way, like, it did make sense that when he found Nation of Islam, and basically like they're saying like, this is our time to rise up, like we've been terrorized by these white devils for so long, and this was like God's plan, and now we're gonna rise up. If you were a black person living in America in that time, and basically your whole existence is just suffering and segregation, it would be a very appealing message to have somebody come in and be like, listen, this is about to end. And all the white people, and he kind of went through a list of all the white people that flashed through his head that had hurt him and that had done really fucked up shit. And somebody's like, there's going to be consequences for this. I'm going to come down and save you, and everything's going to get fixed, and these people are going to pay. It's a really appealing message. It's like
Absolutely.
a message of like revenge and redemption. Like, so it's understandable why like he was like, yeah, I'm on board for that.
I'm on board. And obviously we know the man he will become when he comes out on the other side. You know, that I guess, you know, him being at his lowest point, I would say that's his lowest point well, one of his lowest points of his lifetime. Being in jail. Oof, I can't imagine not even one day in prison. And take it from me, I visited a lot of them. A lot of prisons I visit, you know, going to see my pops coming up as a kid. And you know, my dad, I think he tried to go that route. At one point in time he tried. But it didn't hit home for him the way it did for Malcolm. I think it was just something new and something different than what he's hearing out on the streets. So a lot of, you know, men that, especially black men that, you know, don't have that guidance, they find the guidance in prison. And what Malcolm chose to do with it, you know, he chose to change his whole life. You know, stopping the little things. I think he started with little things like quitting smoking. Uh, yeah, how could you do that, right? Yeah, especially he was getting high every day when he was out. He was smoking reefers. I laugh at reefers because my one of my aunts used to say that you smoking reefers, and I just laugh. I'm like, who the fuck says reefers?
I know
Weed.
some of it.
You smoking
I know
weed,
some
man,
of his
weed.
terms were really funny, like so like
Yeah.
old fashioned.
Give me, slap me some skin.
In cat.
Slap me some skin, cat. You know,
I
so
know.
you know, just the fact that you know, he changed little things about himself in prison, and then the Nation of Islam converted to the Nation of Islam, and we're gonna learn. We ain't get there yet. I mean, I didn't, not yet, but we're getting to that point in the book where when he comes out, he's radicalized, and he's awoke, and he's ready to. I guess he's really trying to really take down the white devil because he's, you know, he obviously with some of his speeches he used that terminology a lot, and
The way he described the white devil was really scary. Like in the book,
yeah,
he's like
he
talking about how they were like on all fours and they were like animals,
demonic
but
type
like
shit, yeah,
yeah, demonic. I was like, it was really scary. I
a
was
little
like,
extreme,
yikes.
you know. I mean, yeah, it's extreme, you know, it's extreme, and you know that's his own personal, I guess, you know, opinion of what the white devil is to him,
Mm-hmm.
perception. Um, you know, I will hope nobody gets, you know, offended by that, but it's just that this is what this man, the things that he lived, this is
Right.
what he lived. This is what he experienced. And, all that anger and animosity is starting to come out. It's starting to pour out in this chapter. It's
Right.
pouring out. And,
No, I
you
had a
know,
moment. No, no, no. I wasn't mad. I had a moment where it kind of freaked me out because I was like, just a moment, because I don't believe in that religion. But I had like a
right.
moment where I was like, oh my god, what if that was true? What if I am the devil? And then I was like, no, that's not true. But like, I wasn't mad about it. I could totally understand why. If I didn't know anything about like our history when I was younger and I would hear something like that, I would get like butthurt about it and be like, hey. But like now that, I understand, this kind of stuff doesn't offend me and it shouldn't offend anybody white who sees this because the situation is if you understand the context of our history and what he went through, you would feel the same way. You would feel the same way. And it's really understandable that he felt that way or that he thought that. And kind of just going back to what I said a minute ago, like, if that was the context in which you grew up and that was your life, and they weren't that far removed from slavery and then Jim Crow and like all the other things, if somebody came to you with a message like that, don't tell me if you were a white person and that it was reversed and somebody told you that you would not jump all over that and be like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Of course you
Right.
would.
Right.
Anybody
And,
would.
and just fast forwarding it, even now, you know, it shouldn't have taken George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. The list goes on and on, right? A lot of There was a lot more white people in protest than I ever seen ever. Even that Black Lives Matter protest. These type of things that happen, you know, the history is here already. The awareness. Talk to your black friends, talk to your black coworkers. Learn more than just you know how's it going at home. Learn about their grandparents. I just think about my great grandmother. What she lived through. She was a pillar of our family, and like she was around at a time where she had to use a separate water fountain, and you know she lived 90. She was 93, I believe, when she passed away a couple years ago. And my cousin, my cousin, he married a white woman, and at first, I think she probably took it as, this is the first one in the family to. I think he's one of them. Yeah, one of the first to bring a white woman to the house and all of that, and get married and have kids. And she had to adapt to that. And just, could we be upset if she was mad? I don't know, because she was alive during the time where it was obviously segregation and a lot going on, and I couldn't imagine the things she saw. Like, I just couldn't. I know
Right.
from the story she used to tell, but I couldn't imagine myself. As you mentioned, we grew up in time now. You see a white and black couple, it's nothing. Even as a kid, I, you know, whoever I liked, I liked. I didn't look at color. I just like, hey, I like her. She looks pretty or whatever. So I just, just thinking about his experience, and his referral to the white devil. Um, yeah, you know,
And it would be totally understandable if that's how your grandmother felt. Like,
right, right,
of
right.
course.
Same way with him. I'm trying to say is this, it's
Yeah.
understandable. Of course, the terminology, the wording is extreme, but we understand what he's trying to get out there. Is we
Yeah.
understand where his feelings are. He's hurt, but this is how he's expressing it, and we're going to learn some more as we continue reading. We're not going to go too much further into it. We want to give the audience some chance to deep dive into this, and hopefully we get to a point in this book club. Once we complete the book, I would love to bring some audience listeners on, our viewers on, to discuss this as well, because we want some feedback. I would love to have that conversation with the audience, especially the ones that's been dedicated to the book club. You know, if they're reading with us, let's discuss this once we wrap this book up because I want to deep dive into this conversation before we transition to our next book, which we haven't decided yet. So
Yeah, we should do like a Q&A.
a Q&A are we have like we invite multiple people on, maybe a couple,
Yeah.
maybe like 10 people on and have like a little small book club meeting and
Decide
all
what we're
go.
going to read next also.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's not going to be white fragility, guys. It's not going to happen.
yeah. Yeah,
That's
we
not
we
going to
gonna
help
learn some shit.
anybody.
We gonna learn some shit, but I think that it's always, you know, I think it's good if we have an open discussion because that's what happened. That's also what needs to happen. Having this conversation, um, it helps spread awareness and help people get involved in different things. Maybe even change people's lives. You never know. It's never too late to change. You know, I take it from me. Prime example.
and
Take it from
seeing how
lately.
and seeing how exactly and seeing how racism in its structural forms continues to evolve, but like also continues to this day, like in the ways that like it may not be legal to discriminate in the workplace against black people, but then you see what happened to Chris and you see what happens all the time at Amazon and the subtle ways that they still get away with structural racism. And it just made me think of this. They were talking about Jeff Bezos's letter to his shareholders and how he was describing how he's going to try to like move some of his employees around so that they get different body muscle groups so that they don't get injured as often because people were complaining about how people kept getting injured on the job. And so like his solution to that was to make the people use an algorithm. He talks about them like they're robots, like they're not humans. So the solution was to use an algorithm to make the employees move around at different times so that they're still working just as long hours, but hopefully they don't get injured as often because you'll be using different muscle groups. And then people have the nerve to talk about how Jeff Bezos earned his money. And it made me think about how back in the day, and I know it's not the same thing as slavery. I know it's a little bit of a stretch of an example. It's not the best example because I know that Amazon pays. But it does kind of remind me of a little bit just a step above slavery. It's like saying for Jeff Bezos and people like that who stand for him and make excuses for billionaires to say that a billionaire like Jeff Bezos earned all of his money when it's all these like black and brown people and like that are and like some like white trash poor people, don't worry, I didn't forget about you guys, I see you, that are on the assembly lines doing the work to help enrich him, and they're the ones who are literally breaking their backs to make his wealth, and you're saying he's the one who earned it. That's kind of the equivalent of some like old time southern slave owners having all these black people like do all of the work for their crops and then turn around and be like, I earned all this, guys. I earned it. The reason why I'm so filthy rich is because I earned all of this. See my land, see my house.
Right.
And then
And Jeff Bezos couldn't even last he wouldn't even last 30 minutes at a station at his warehouse.
yes, what you just said. Yes, it's a good way of putting it. Wage slavery has replaced traditional slavery. So it's almost like we have slavery still, but they think if they throw a few crumbs at you, that it's okay. That it's okay. Like, oh, no. It's okay that we still have slavery in this country because we throw a few crumbs at you now. So you can't complain about how you're chattel anymore because we threw some crumbs at you.
I tell you now, Amazon is definitely the new day slavery. Just think of the job title as a picker. You're a picker. You know, they have a position called the picker.
Yes.
And you have to pick 400 items an hour, less than 7 seconds each item. So you're touching customers, you're touching about almost after a 10-hour shift, about 5,000, almost 5,000 items a day because some people pick higher than 400. I know I was one of them. I was picking close to 600. I was that good at the job. I was picking 600 items an hour. I was touching like 55 to 6,000, almost 6,000 items a day. So
So it is
just
though. That it's
it is slavery.
And then they turn and then they turn around and go, why are you guys talking about taxing Jeff Bezos? He earned this. No, he did not earn it. It is would have bupkis if it were not for people like the pickers who make
the machine go.
Pittance that are the ones that are making this run. That are the ones that are picking 6,000 items, at whatever given time. What are we going to actually believe his bald ass is going to run over there and just start picking items and bringing them to people's houses or whatever?
He went last.
So yes, it drives me insane when people are like, he earned it. First of all, there's no such thing as earning billions of dollars, okay? That's not a thing. Stop trying to make it happen. Second of all, people being like, he earned it. It's like, no. He did not. These people do not earn this. What they do is they use exploitative slave labor that we don't call slavery anymore because they throw you a few pennies. And then they go, oh, no, that's not slavery. We paid them. No, it kind of is like slavery, which is why when I hear like, oh, we earned it, I actually got this image in my head of like slaves in the old South, like picking cotton, and then like the white, like racist, like slave landowner that looks like Leonardo DiCaprio in that one movie where he played the racist guy, being right. I earned this. Like, that's how it sounds. I'm just like...
That's exactly how it sounds.
And then you have all these people being like, no, he really worked hard for it. No, he didn't work hard for it. He exploited a bunch of poor black and brown people to do it for him, and then he turned around and said that he did it. That's what's
Let's talk about it. Talking about Amazon, before we wrap it up, let's give y'all some updates, people. If y'all know what's going on, y'all seen some articles. Obviously, everybody know that I'm out in front of Staten Island every day now. Yeah. Every day I'm out in Staten Island, in front of JFK, my former facility, trying to get this done, trying to get this unionized. The independent route. So let's touch on Bessemer, bringing up slave labor. Bessemer, 85% black. 80% black, I'm sorry. 85% black women work at that warehouse. And Amazon poured millions of dollars into stopping that campaign. So yes, Jeff Bezos is definitely an oppressor, definitely a slave master, chief union buster. And it's starting here already. I only been in front of Staten Island for a week, and we're already getting the full-fledged campaign against us in my one little tent that I got set up outside the facility. Obviously, they know that we're a threat, and they know that this is a union state, and they know that these workers have a different energy. So they're trying to jump the gun, and they expediting their union busting campaign as well. They already put up signs in the bathrooms. That happened last night. The day before, the text messages went out to all the facilities surrounding JFK, including JFK. The management is already lying to these employees, saying, no, if you sign, you're going to get fired. All types of rumors are flying around. But it's actually playing into our favor because a lot of these workers are relatives of union members. A lot of the bus drivers that they ride, the bus, they're unionized. The constructions people that's building the buildings around JFK, they're all unionized. There's unions everywhere in Staten Island. So these unionized workers that are actually seeing me put this union drive together, they're actually helping talk to these employees like, get your ass to that table and sign up for that union. And this is a brand new independent union for the audience that, that's listening. This union is called Amazon Labor Union. You can find it on amazonlaborunion.org, Twitter at Amazon Labor. Also, the link onto extension of my Twitter handle at @shut_down Amazon. We have a GoFundMe up there, so please donate. We're self-funded right now. We're spending money out of our pockets every single day, but we know we have to do this to match Amazon's power and money, which we're never going to do, but we're going to try anyway. And we're using the power of people. The power of people is the fact that this is home base for me is resonating more than any type of money can ever put up. They can never put up. The fact that we're here in New York, where it all started last year, these people, these employees of mine, they're still there. and they're very much aware of what's going on. They're very much supportive, and that puts us at an advantage. But still, that doesn't mean that we can just be complacent. We know Amazon is going to go above and beyond high water, trying to cancel us and get this busted up. So we're asking the community, we're asking everybody online, everybody that's tuned in, to help out in any way possible, providing us with resources, whether it's donations, whether if you're in the New York area, you can come volunteer for me. Please feel free to reach out. We need all the support in the world, and it's going to happen if we can get it done. We get to an election, I can tell you, I can guarantee that this ain't Alabama. We're going to win. These workers are upset already. A lot of them, I've been there every day, and every day some worker come out because they got fired or they quit. And that is no lie. That's just telling you the truth, and that's what's going on still at Amazon. They hire and fire, and we tell the workers, you're worth so much more. They cram these workers onto these buses when Amazon should be paying for shuttle buses for them to commute from the ferry, which is an hour bus ride, to the building. So just to give y'all an example of what's going on, and we hope everybody stays in tune. It's just getting started. It's going to get crazy.
I'm sorry. They're such fucking cheapskates. They can't even bring them from the ferry to the warehouse. Like, for fuck's sake.
No. No, absolutely not. And I did that commute 3.5 hours each way after working the 12-hour shift. I actually took a power nap and went back, and it was crazy. It was the worst time of my life. And I know these workers are still going through that. There's workers that I've met that live in New Jersey.
A person's body cannot handle that, which is why they're so disgusting. They like run people ragged physically,
people
and they
limping.
just like dump them.
Man, I can tell you real quick. There was an associate that was he was a big dude. Physically, he looked like he was fit, but he was limping. I'm like, yo, come here, man. You limping? What happened? And he told me, he's due for a surgery in a month, but they still got you working? Sign this union card, brother. And he did. He's like, you know what? You're right, man. And I felt for him. I'm like, damn, that was me. Like, waking up some days, back spasms. I still got to go to work, walk this long-ass building. It's sad, and I hope that, these workers really understand that we're fighting with them. It's not, we're not a third party. We're not an established union. Amazon's spending it as if we're some third party trying to take their money and run up to the sunset. No, we're with you guys. We are you. The union is you. You as the worker. You are the union. You make it what it is. We're not discussing no union dues. We're going to democratically decide what our dues are. And I can tell you now, putting it out there now, we're not even going to ask for more than $3. So take that, Amazon. If y'all think that y'all going to use union dues against us, it's not going to happen. We're going to go with the $11.99 way. Back in the day, my mom used to be a part of that union. And she said back then it was only asking for $1 a check, and that worked. That was efficient. And we may go that route too, a couple of dollars. We don't need a lot of money. We don't care about the money. It's about the respect. It's about being treated better and better working conditions and having a better contract to protect us. So if you're an Amazon worker listening, reach out. We got your back. And with that said, I think it's a wrap. I kind of rhymed it.
Flex, and what about the east side? El Barrio, we blowing smoke while we G-Ride. Washington Heights, dímelo, Tato, todo bien, Tato, capo, Flex, and what about the east side? El Barrio, we blowing smoke while we G-Ride. Washington Heights, dímelo, Tato, todo bien, Tato, capo, Shout outs to Taff where them killers is made. We was out on the Ave, young Dylan that gay. Trying to get cash, pumping curls to get paid. Alcohol in my glass, blood filled with haters. We congregate in front of them grocery stores, selling crack, Hellgats, and conversate while we smoke the raw. And sit on crates like they lazy boys, distribute weight like the 80s boy, and whip up eighth in the latest toy, like it's the only thing to do. Them house parties, well you had to bring your crew. And we stay fly, Pele level with the boots. Shake the dice and call your bet out for your shoe. You looking scared, money fall better to the deuce. We was set up on the stoop, getting wet up on the stoop, and watch the dust fiends getting wet up off the juice, trying to get up off that loop so we can get up Lennox, and what about the east side? El Barrio, we blowing smoke while we G-Ride. Washington Heights, Dímelo, Tato, you know